What's up, everybody? Ron Placone here. You can pre-order Left It Wall now on Apple TV. The link is in the show notes, or you can just go to Apple TV, search Left It Wall. It should come right up. You can pre-order the movie now. Left It Wall will be officially released on January 24th. If you are an Apple TV subscriber, please do pre-order it if you are able. The more pre-orders we get, the better placement we'll have when we're a new release. So it'd be really awesome to make the front page. So please, if you're an Apple TV user, please pre-order Left It Wall. Link is in the show notes, and or you could just search it, Apple TV Left It Wall. If you're not an Apple TV user, don't worry. Once Left It Wall is released on January 24th, it's going to be in a bunch of different places. So there'll be plenty of platforms which you can see it on. And I'll, of course, be giving all that information as the release date gets closer. But now you can pre-order it right now. Apple TV, Left It Wall. The wait is finally over. Peace. Episode 68. Krish Mohan. Krish Mohan is a comedian, graphic designer, and mental health advocate. Also, he's a close friend. He's in my movie, Left It Wall, and we've collaborated on a ton of stuff over the years. This episode hits the themes of creative fulfillment and happiness. Perfect episode to end a year. Please welcome to the show, Krish Mohan. Krish Mohan, good to see you, old friend.
Good to see you. It's been a minute.
It's been a while, dude. When's the last time? I'm trying to think. I don't know. I've seen you since our run in 2022, right? It hasn't been that long.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
We did the movie screening.
That's right. You were at the Left It Wall screening. I dragged you. I dragged you out of stand-up retirement and made you do a set that night. That's right.
Last show.
Yeah, I was like, all right. We're gonna dive into all that, but we're gonna start earlier. So, what was it like for you? How old were you when you came to the U.S.?
I was 8, so I finished 3rd grade in India, and then came to the States to technically. So initially, I ended up starting 4th grade, but it was a whole big thing because the school, our school time in India is different. So our break is during the fall. I never had school on my birthday, which is in October. Mm-hmm. And we just had the end of the year. That was our kind of summer break. So because the year is so wonky, they wanted me to redo the 3rd grade in the States. But I ended up essentially proving that I don't need to. Mm-hmm. But because of that, I was always the younger kid in class. I was usually either the youngest kid in my grade or definitely within the top 5. Always.
So where was your English at that point? Did you grow up with it, or were you speaking English, or?
Oh yeah. Okay. English was kind of the primary the language in school. So in India, my school was part of a Catholic church. So the Catholic Church is kind of had the public schools, and we still had to pay fees to go attend. So I'm going to try to remember what my school was called. It was called Our Lady of Grace Perpetual High School. Okay.
Even though you weren't in high school.
No, but that's what it was called. And then my sister's was, because she went to an all-girls school, I went to an all-boys school, but it was kind of the same building. My sister's was St. Anthony's Girls' School.
So St. Anthony was good with the ladies. And
super cool with the ladies.
Our Lady of Grace was for the guys.
Yeah.
I never knew this about you, which is interesting because, I went to an all-boys school for high school. So I don't know how... Yeah, I went to Central in Pittsburgh.
I don't know how we never talked about this.
I don't know how we never talked about this either. It's... I'm sure it's something that neither of us necessarily embrace about ourselves, but I don't want to speak for you, but it's not it just is what it is. I'm not, it's just where I went to high school. I don't know why it would ever come up, but
it kind of explains why I'm not a religious person though.
Same. Yeah. Being in, I kind of wonder if I wasn't indoctrinated with it, so I saw all the holes in it, would I still have, walked away from it as hard as I did? I mean, I think no matter what, I wouldn't be a very religious person, but I don't know if I would have been as adamantly outspoken as I was had it not been for, really being indoctrinated in it and then turning against it.
Yeah, it was especially weird because it was a Catholic school in a predominantly Hindu country. So, and I only attended, it wasn't mandatory that you attend mass, and they had a mass like at the end of every day that people would go to. And the idea was like, you could attend mass with your kid. Like you could come pick up your kid and go to mass in the evening before you go home for like dinner and stuff. So I never really attended it, except I attended it twice when somebody else had to come pick me up because my mom or my sister, who would normally come pick me up from school, like just couldn't. And I just remember being so confused and not like knowing what to do. And then like they passed the offering plate to me. And I guess it's just sort of like one of those things of like, you just pass it along. But I felt really weird as like this kid getting this offering plate and being like, I don't know what to put in this. Like, I don't have anything to give to you. I'm like 6. Like, do you want this bouncy ball I have in my pocket? Like,
right. But
it was bizarre because I'd never heard like a monotheistic perspective on religion before, because Hinduism is all polytheistic. Mm-hmm. So to hear that there was like only one God was weird. And I think when I was a kid, I just sort of was like, well, that was weird. That's different. And I just sort of like...
What did your family practice? Were they Catholic?
Very practicing Hindus.
Okay. Right. So they were kind of like, hey, just go to school, but they're way off brand here with the God determination. Like, did they tell you anything or no?
No, we never talked about it. We never talked about Catholicism. We never talked about why I went to a Catholic school.
It's just one of those things they did.
Yeah, it's like my dad went there, so I'm going there, like, so it was just one of those things of like, oh, this is just like a thing you guys decided we're doing, so we're doing it.
Like, well, so why'd you all come to the States? Is that like
my dad got transferred here?
Oh,
so he was working for a company that kind of expanded, and was like, I think they were being bought out by a different company. It was like one of those things, and so he was part of. I don't know a whole lot about this because every time I ask my dad about it, his response is it's not my concern, so he just doesn't tell me. Wow. Not a great relationship with him. So
yeah, I know you guys aren't the closest. I mean, we've talked about that off mic, but
I've pieced a couple things together. I think this was like the company was getting absorbed by a larger corporation, and he was part of the middle management crew that was like getting bumped up. But in order to get bumped up, they would have to move to the States because Pittsburgh was where their headquarters were. So he moved. And then 6 months later, my mom, my sister, and I came to Pittsburgh. So like Pittsburgh was like the first place that I moved to in the States, which is not what I had expected. Because
you expect?
It like either New York or LA.
Okay, so you expected like the really, really big... I mean, Pittsburgh has a skyline, but it's not like New York or LA size, and it's not this huge, sprawling metropolis.
Yeah.
So was it like kind of underwhelming for you, or?
A little bit. Yeah, I thought we hadn't made it yet. Like, I thought we were like... in a way,
this is the outskirts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, we're going to hang out here for a couple months and then we'll make it to the big city kind of thing.
That's interesting. Well, so when did they break it to you that, no, this is it? This is our city?
I think within like the first couple weeks when I was like, oh, all our stuff is here and we're getting unpacked. I was like, oh, we live here. Like, we're not moving to like a bigger place after this.
Were you disappointed, or were you just, well, let me try this on for size?
I think it was the second thing. I was like, oh, we'll see what we can do. Even though I'm 8, it's like, what are we going to do? You're going to get some action figures and then find out that maybe TSA stole a bunch of your Legos.
Did they?
I'm almost certain of it. I had a huge box. I had a huge box with like a shit ton of Legos because I when I was a kid, I had a big Lego collection and I had a big G.I. Joe collection. And we like packed my Legos in this big box and like a third of them were just missing, which they could have fallen out, but like we super sealed this box. And I'm pretty sure like they took it. That was just
I mean, well, and that was back when there was a little more lenience on how much you could bring on a plane, right? I mean, this was definitely pre 9/11, but you probably still had to check some stuff.
Yeah,
they probably got it.
Suitcases. Yeah, and I was really kind of bummed out because it was a noticeably smaller pile of Legos, and I was pretty sad. But like that was it. I don't think I really had like. I was like, all right, this is fine. I can figure out how to make it here. Whatever that means to an 8-year-old.
With my Legos.
Yeah.
With my decimated Legos.
Oh, this is the struggle they all talk about.
Man, that's so terrible to do. Like, how can you just steal Legos from a kid?
Yeah,
why would you risk your job to just do something really mean to a kid? Like, it's just really sad.
The only justification I had was like, I hope you have a kid, and it was just like a tough time, and now you have a bunch of Legos for this kid. Like that was the only thought that I could justify it with. But it's still like, but why?
But why? Yeah, I mean that's a cool altruistic thought. I mean, tis the season, so good on you.
Yeah.
But so, what was school like for you in the States? Was it a lot different? Was it similar? Because did you go to a Catholic school in the States, or? No,
I went to public in the States. So that was kind of a big thing. Is I'd never taken a school bus before. I'd always walked to school. It was about a 10-minute walk to school. So that was different. And then, the school bus was a little familiar, mostly because the school bus didn't have seatbelts. And cars in India didn't have seatbelts. So I was like, okay, this feels like I'm riding just a public bus. I didn't really know how to dress properly. So I kind of wore like dressy clothes. I wore like a nice white t-shirt, like black pants, wore dress shoes because I didn't know what to wear. So of course I got mercilessly made fun of.
Yeah, I was going to say, how'd that work out for you?
Not great. I'm pretty sure I got dropped on the concrete and got bullied the first day.
In the 4th grade, they were dropping you on the concrete.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I think that was like, they were just, it's like rambunctious 8-year-olds. But like I had a hard time making friends because like I was different. I was the only like Indian kid in my class. I think I was the only Indian kid in my grade at that point. I was very new, and everybody kind of had known each other from either the previous grade or like going to kindergarten and elementary school together and stuff. So there was like a little bit of a history between everybody. And so like I didn't really make a close group of friends till I got to middle school. Till I got to like the 6th grade. That's when I like started forming like better relationships with friends and like learning what it actually means to like socialize with people. Cause I had no idea how to do it in the States. So like the way that I did it in India is I had a couple of friends, but they all lived in different buildings. So we would like go congregate at one person's building and then they would bring their friends along. So I didn't know how to make that happen in the States. So I just went over to like people's backyards and I was like, hello, group of children. How are you doing?
You just approached them in their backyard?
Yeah, because they were hanging out and playing with action figures. And I was like, I have a box of action figures. Can I join and hang out with your action figures? Like, I didn't know how to do it.
Did they say yes? Like, were they into it or?
No.
No.
It was it.
They sent you away? Like, what happened?
Yeah. They were just like, no, we don't want to play with your action figures. Who are you? Like, I think there was one parent that got really concerned, and came over and was like, where do you live? Where are your parents? Are you okay? Because it's just this random. I had no idea how to make friends at all. And then, but like going to school helped.
It's like kind of sad, but also pretty funny.
In a really hilarious way. Yeah, looking back on it, I was just like
you just, yeah. Especially in the town that, you know, we both grew up in. I mean, just picturing that in Pittsburgh, where there's just some random kid going into backyards, and I just picture some parents like, we don't know what's up with that one. No, he just roams around in yards and stuff. He roams around in yards and that, and he has these action figures on it. Yeah, no, you don't play with them.
It was just like I look back on it and I was like, oh yeah, I feel like if I was 8 and playing in my backyard and a random kid showed up with a bunch of action figures, I'd be like, what's happening right now?
Right. Yeah, it's just a different, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
That's so wild.
But like school helped. Like I learned how to, interact with kids and stuff, and I made friends on the playground.
There's a lesson where they're like, don't go into people's backyards. That's not a thing to do.
It's like, guess what? I have all these G.I. Joes, and I have one Batman action figure. You guys want to hang out? But so, yeah.
Come middle school, you made like a friend group.
Yeah, and we were like a bunch of these nerdy kids. We were all into Gundam Wing. I don't know if you remembered that. It was like it's a giant robot anime.
Okay.
So a lot of us did. We got really into like model building. So I was like really into model building for a while. But I learned very quickly those are models that you build and then you put them on a shelf. You can't play with them all the time because that's not what they're built for.
Yeah, they're fragile. Yeah. So you got into like subculture type stuff right away, like anime and stuff like that. Was it because of your friends, or did you just discover it on your own?
Yeah, I discovered a lot of that stuff from just the weird little social groups that I made, and they were all like the misfits and outsiders of. Like they were the group of people at lunch that sat together because nobody else wanted to hang out with them. And then I was like, I want to hang out with you guys. You guys are great. Like you guys are into like all these weird, cool things. Are
you still tight with anyone from that era?
No, unfortunately not. After high school, we stayed close throughout middle school and high school, but then after high school, it became a lot more difficult because. You expand social groups in college, and I tried to mix social groups, but it's never particularly been successful. Like I always wanted like everybody to be friends with each other, but the older I get, the more I'm like, no, it's okay. I don't think these people are going to particularly meet. They'll hear about each other, but I don't think they need to like constantly meet and hang out with each other as a big group or anything. But yeah, like I tried doing that in college and it didn't really work out. And it was always, again, it was very awkward. It was very much the, similar effect of like going into somebody's backyard with a bunch of action figures. They were just like, yeah, these people are nice, but I don't know if we want to regularly hang out with them and you all the time. Like, can we just hang out? Like we just have our own thing. And that was like hard to learn.
No, I hear you. So when did you find your way to comedy then?
High school.
Okay.
Yeah, I bounced around a bunch of tables, and like one of my friends, Derek Christek, is a fantastic musician. He plays music more for fun than he does like to pursue as a career. Mm-hmm. But he was in a band, and we would just do bits and crack jokes at the lunch table. And he was like, you should do this at our high school talent show. And so I went home and I like wrote 8 jokes on a note card and I like practiced them. And then I did it for the audition. Then they were like, okay, we're going to actually give you 3 5-minute spots. Do you have 15 minutes? And I lied. And I was like, yeah, I got hours of material. It's like, you're 16. What, like, you have 8 solid minutes, and then you're going to panic for the rest of them. So like, we had rehearsal days because they wanted to like make sure all the tech was running properly. So I essentially ran those as they were like my open mics. So I would go and I would do my material that I'd done for the audition, and then I would try out new jokes to fill in the rest of the time, and like see what would work. And what was really neat about that is like that was also the first time where I think I really experienced like an artist group, because there were a couple of other bands. There were like theater kids doing a scene from a play or a scene from a movie. And they would come up and be like, "Oh, I really liked this bit," and I thought like, what if you added this line, or what if this was a concept that you added to this bit? So it was neat because they would come up and like workshop jokes with me, in between different acts, like each of the rehearsals that we had, and we had like 5 or 6 different rehearsals to make sure like the timing was correct, because this was like the first big talent show that our school was running. So they wanted to make sure like it ran well. But that was kind of like the first time that I remember that I can look back and say like, oh, this was like kind of a communal effort to make each other better. Because as much as they would give me advice, I would kind of go back to them and be like, oh, that thing that you did, what if you played it bigger? Or like, what if you looked to the, you know what I mean? Like giving them little cues and tips that I think would be interesting, and then they can try it if they wanted to. So it was neat to kind of see like it was a competition for sure, but everybody was kind of on each other's side and working together to just be like, we just want to make it a fun night for our parents and for like our peers and stuff like that. And I don't know if everybody realized that's what was happening. But, when you kind of look back on it, that's sort of the thing that I like to pick up from it is like the little team effort that we had. Because then going into comedy, like we would workshop bits together, and it was never about like trying to outdo each other. It was always about like, let's just make this a kick-ass show. Mm-hmm. And then like in Pittsburgh, when I started coming out to open mics and I was like starting to work the road a little bit, myself, Zach Funk, Ray Zawadny, and Mark McCall, who are all local Pittsburgh comics, very funny, but we all had these moments where we would get stuck and we wouldn't know how to like make a joke work. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did. We sat around a table, we would do these bits for each other, and then we would like go and workshop the bit and then go up to an open mic and try it out on stage to see how it worked. And it was like the first time, I think, in my entire like comedic career where it felt like we were taking things seriously for the scene, for the sake of like making the Pittsburgh comedy scene better and stronger. But I kind of go back to that first talent show in high school, and I think like seeing everybody work together and seeing everybody kind of foster that culture of community, I think kind of instilled that. For me, that was like the first time I really saw that.
How'd you go over at the talent show? Did you get laughs?
Yeah, I did. There was like a couple jokes that didn't land. I had a joke about Benito Mussolini invading Ethiopia.
And the high school talent show crowd wasn't ready for that one, huh?
They were a little confused, but every single history teacher, which was about 7 of them, had a great time with that joke.
Nice. They were like, all right, we're seeing our. Not only was that a funny, witty thing, but it's proof that we're doing our job, we think.
Yeah, it was cool to kind of just hear them laugh, but it was honestly like it was such a weird, goofy bit that that I just enjoyed. And then like the last bit, I like didn't have a way to close the last set, so I just closed it with my dad doing a rant in an Indian accent, and everybody loved it. because I was 16 and I didn't know what to do. So it was just like, this seems to work. I'll just roll with this. And then I did it the second year. I did the talent show again, which was tougher because I was like, I want to write new material, and that's always tougher, and it's always a gamble because you never know how it's going to go. And it did okay, but it wasn't as strong as like the earlier stuff. But I had also not figured out that you can go to open mics to like workshop.
Yeah,
like,
you didn't really.
Better.
Yeah, you didn't know the process yet. No, I feel you. Well, so fast forwarding a little bit, once you're doing comedy and it's your thing. So what intrigued you about just getting on the road? Was it just sort of a natural next step, or was it a taste for adventure? Or...
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I didn't know how to make comedy into a career. And I think I remember talking to you about it. Like, this is a million years ago, but it was at the Smiling Moose. And I remember like, you were like, yeah, I go on the road. And I was like, what does that mean? And you kind of told me like, it was just like, go on the road, like Jack Kerouac?
Kind of. It not quite that exciting, but yeah.
But I just like thought about it, and I was like, oh yeah, I would love to do that. And that makes the most sense to me. And to me, it was like, that's also the best way for me to get better as a comedian.
Yeah. Because
I can see how to like think on my feet a little bit better, write and change jokes based on the crowd. Like there was so much that I thought I could learn by being on the road. And I did. And, the road definitely has its ups and downs, but it really seemed like that was the best and most fun way to make comedy into a career. And then like later as things went on, I think my ultimate goal was to be like a Jon Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like my real first introduction into comedy was The Daily Show, of like, oh, you can do this in a very substantial and meaningful way. And you can do this to not just be silly and have a good time, but also like say something and make an impact at the same time. And I thought that was I thought that was really powerful. And I thought that was one of those things, like, I struggled with this a long time of like, does it only have to be silly, goofy jokes and stories, or can it be something more powerful? And I went back and forth. And I think in college is when I kind of like resolved that for myself with Carlin.
Yeah.
Like I discovered Carlin in college, and I like went down down that rabbit hole. And I was like, oh, well, this is interesting and different. And I think I found Bill Hicks around the same time. And it was just sort of this like eye-opening thing of like, oh, you can be goofy and silly and, talk about dicks.
Yeah.
But also make an impact and have a voice and make a statement. Which I think kind of changed my perspective on comedy and kind of led me to doing comedy on the road, to touring a lot more. I don't think I really understood what touring meant until I did it. And then like, once you kind of see it for what it is, you're like, oh, okay, this isn't super flashy, but it doesn't have to be super flashy. I just have to figure out how to have enough gas in my car and make sure my meals are covered and my bills are paid. And I can do this and be pretty comfortable. And that was kind of like the goal in the beginning. But I think doing the road also like showed me that talking about these higher topics, like how not polarizing it is, but how people can get really emotionally wrapped up in it. And both in a positive and a negative way. And I think it also, again, kind of re-emphasized that lesson of like, no, this is a very powerful art form. And as much silliness and goofiness as there is to it, it is like something that can change people's minds. And in my head, I think when I was younger doing this, I think my initial thought was, oh, people's minds will be changed faster because, oh, there's a lot more people doing it than just me, like talking about these important things. But that's not how it works. It takes a while for like the consciousness of humanity to change as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really tough concept to grapple with because, I mean, obviously I've dedicated so much of my life, like my working life and creative life and everything to this idea that, you know, using art to express a point of view is an important thing and a noble thing and a very rewarding thing. But then you look at it from the contemporary sense and you kind of have to look at the reality. I think Lewis Black said something like this where, well, as long as I've been doing my thing, things overall have gotten worse. I don't think I'm the problem, but
right, yeah.
or comedy in general. Like I don't think you know, subversive art or whatever is the problem. I think it actually probably helps, but you know, things have gotten worse. So there is that. Yeah,
it's definitely gotten more polarizing. I mean, I thought it was like, I don't know, people would always get worried for me because primarily where I wound up touring was like the Midwest and the South. And so like people were worried for me because I was pretty lefty off the bat. Like it wasn't really a secret that I was you know, lefty and kind of a weird hippie. Like that was sort of my viewpoint. And I think it was pretty evident from the start. And the more I kind of started leaning into it and like talking about these large, like essayistic topics, I think there were some people that were like, hey man, you're going to Alabama and your opening bit is 7 minutes about your anxiety disorder. Like it was just, but it was.
Well, you always did mostly like the independent rooms and stuff in places like that, right? Like you weren't doing like.
No,
so
I wasn't.
Usually that would give you like a more, I mean, generally speaking, you'd get like a more, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like alternative friendly audience.
Absolutely.
Typically.
Absolutely. You absolutely do. And I think I found what I wanted to do with my material first. And then when I started doing clubs, like I remember this was one of the last times that I did Hilarities in Cleveland, which is an awesome room.
Yeah, that's a great club.
It's a really beautiful club. And they bring some top-notch talent. And their openers are usually like very good and their hosts are very good. So like their whole thing is like they do bring in the top-notch talent. And when I started doing this long-form essayistic stuff, it was kind of the last time that I hosted. So I would only be able to do like one story, and that would be my host set because these bits were so long. And I remember having a conversation with the manager, and he wasn't being mean or anything, but he was like, you don't have the credits for us to feature you because that's a requirement. And we think you're amazing, but like, until you can get some credits, like hosting is going to get harder for you doing the thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was the nicest person. And he was the one that was like, hey, go find the rooms that work for you. Because if you do that, then eventually doing these rooms becomes a lot easier. You can get longer spots, you know.
So they're there to see you. So it doesn't matter. I mean, when they're there to see you, all rules are off.
Yeah, it's a totally different show, and that was the first time where I was just like, oh, you can build that's what I should be doing. I should be trying to build a following, instead of like trying to showcase for clubs that I'm not good for, like I'm not a particularly good fit for. Like the Funny Bone, again, really good club chain, bring great comics in there, and I've seen some incredible talent come through, and all of the Funny Bones just through my travels. But my voice was not what that room was looking for. They're not looking for they're not looking for comedy with a thesis statement. and that's what I wanted to do. And I think finding that encouragement of like, okay, I should just go figure out how to book indie shows or like how to book alternative venues. And then once I started doing that, I think that's when touring started making sense. And it was more about like, let me create a run. Let me make relationships with certain venues and certain bookers. And like, that's kind of what I wanted to do. And I wanted to kind of build like a little community around the show. So this is something that I like picked up just from opening for people like Stuart Huff and Lee Camp. They would go hang out with people after shows. Mm-hmm. And those people like come back to see them every time because they had a memorable experience. But more than that, for Stuart and Lee, it was like, they got to know the city that they were in through the people that they talked with. And that's kind of what I ended up doing is like, you know, you're touring through. It's like Lansing, Michigan, for example. I love Lansing, Michigan, but I love Lansing, Michigan because the people in Lansing are so warm and welcoming, right? Like I played this place called the Robin Theater 4 or 5 times. And it is absolutely one of my favorite venues in the entire country. But the reason why I always kind of have this very like positive, you know, gushy feeling about Lansing is every time we would go hang out and the people are awesome. And we would talk about like local politics and, you know, like what the activist community is doing, you know, what's going on with the neighborhood the venue is in and how like either the bar or the coffee shop we were hanging out in is doing something to like, you know, decrease crime and this, that, and the third. And I got to kind of like learn more about the community initiatives and what people are doing on a community level, which to me was always where you saw the most results is when you can do stuff on a smaller community level. That's when I think you can drive like a little bit more change and a little bit more like substantial and permanent level of change. Because it's working on a smaller level. Like once you start making it bigger and bigger, there's more challenges and more people that you kind of have to accommodate. So things slow down. At least that's my perspective. But I got to kind of learn about all those things by hanging out with people after shows and talking to them and like just listening to their perspective. And that was always kind of like my favorite part of the shows is people that connected with the material but want to kind of carry the conversation forward. And then, you know, then I got to like go from Lansing to, you know, Chicago and have a conversation with somebody that might have a similar thing and say, hey, actually in Lansing, they're doing XYZ. That was always, and it didn't happen all the time, but that was kind of like the thought process that I had. Once I started figuring out like, oh, I want to develop a following, but I don't just want it to be this arbitrary following. I would love for it to be something more. And that's a much harder challenge. And you really have to be committed. And there were definitely some nights after shows where it's just like, I've been on the road for 6 weeks and this is like the tail end. And I just want to go back to where I'm crashing and go to bed. But like the show was so good and everybody in the crowd was so energetic and so enthusiastic about everything that they want to hang out with you afterwards. And they want to like, you know, buy you a drink or buy you dinner or something. And I always felt like that's okay. I will wake up a little bit later tomorrow morning to make sure like I can like hang out with these folks and listen to what they have to say and not just be like, I don't know, someone that comes in and just says a bunch of shit and leaves. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, totally. So Is this around the time that Fringe stuff started playing a role for you too, like Fringe Festival type stuff?
Yeah. Stuart Huff introduced me to the Fringe Festival, and I did the Indie Fringe in, I want to say like 2015. That was the first one that I did. And it was a totally different beast than touring. It's that really is about the community. That really is about connecting with that Fringe community. And that was like where I got to see all these artists. And again, it was like we would go and hang out at this Irish pub at the end of the night after we saw each other's shows and after we caught these other shows. And we would talk about, life and love and everything in between, but we would give each other notes. And we would hang out with like audience members, and they would have like follow-up questions. And it was just like being available to people as like a performer and an entertainer. And I think like being available to people on that level added a certain level of humanity to you. Like you weren't just a figure on stage, like you were a person. Like, and I think that like kind of deepened that audience performer bond a little bit. But I really, really loved that because again, it was like, if there was something that didn't connect, or if there was something that was confusing and I hadn't figured out how to solve the problem, those conversations creatively would help me out too. Mm. So it was kind of like sourcing from the outside. If that makes any sense.
No, that's a really cool way to, that's kind of a cool way to assess it all. So what does it mean to you to be creatively fulfilled?
Oh, that is a great question. I think it's more about just doing what's true to your voice. That was the big thing for me, was trying to be as honest about what I believed and translating that to the stage. That was kind of the thing, but
well, big picture too, like beyond stand up, like I mean, like in life in general, like what does it mean?
I think it's to have fun. I think people get bogged down in the process a little too much, and there is a process, but you get to a certain point where you can trust your own process without having to think about it too much, and think about like the nitty gritty a whole lot, and you can just kind of go and have fun on stage. Like creatively speaking, if I'm making something and something unexpected happens and I can use it to create something new, like pivot and adapt to something unexpected, again, that to me is creative fulfillment, because it's just you kind of going with the flow and you're not trying to force something to happen. So I guess that's kind of being fluid also is sort of part of that creative fulfillment but I think that's where having fun comes with it, is if you're fluid and you're open to something unexpected and kind of going with it rather than trying to like push against it, you get the best stuff out of it. And it might just be for that one moment, which is okay. So that's another part of creative fulfillment, is like, I don't have to recreate everything perfectly all the time. I can let this be sort of its own individual thing without it being a bigger part of everything. Like I have shows that I did where I did maybe 10 minutes of material in a 45-minute set because I just had fun riffing with the audience. Like something happened and we would just riff together. That was kind of the best moments on stage, is you get to be fluid and you get to kind of go with the flow, and you just get to like not overly force everything. I think being creatively fulfilled is, I find creative fluidity and like just going with the flow and not trying to force things to be kind of like that creative fulfillment. those are sort of the best moments I've had on stage is moving fluidly through the unexpected and not getting bogged down at the fact that something unexpected actually happened. Yeah.
Well, and then, so what made you decide it was time to walk away from it?
I was just burnt out, and I wasn't having fun with what I was creating. And I was doing that where I was trying to force things. I was trying to either force the point that I was trying to make, or I was trying to force jokes in order to add levity to something a lot more serious. And that was the moment where I was like, I'm not having fun. I'm burnt out. I'm getting stressed over little things. And I was doing a lot of virtual shows after the pandemic had started. And I was writing new material almost every week for a while. So it was just like, I was doing a lot. And I was also getting burnt out by the constant arguments, right? Like it was just such a polarizing time that even people that were regularly on my side were like aggressively commenting towards me. And it was just like, I don't understand. I'm just, I just want to have a conversation. I just want to kind of bring light to an important topic. And once I got to that point, I was like, I think I'm not having fun anymore. After I do a show, I'm really just exhausted. And I think I need to take a step back from it. And originally that's all it was. It was like, I'm going to take a step back, kind of reevaluate stuff. But soon after I stepped back, it was very evident that like, okay, I don't have the performance bug in me anymore. I still believe in everything that I talked about on stage. Like that's still a core part of who I am. But now I think I just want to go out and try to like live what I believe in the best way that I can under this capitalist hellscape that we're all kind of a part of. I'm doing okay financially for the first time in my life, I think. So I kind of wanted to like think about, well, what do I want to support? Like, what are things that I want to kind of back my money into? And it all kind of falls back into like, I want to support local artists. I want to support local venues and do my best with that. And, and now I'm kind of thinking like I took a big step back from keeping up with a lot of political stuff. Like I kind of just kept in touch with it passively over the last year. All through 2023. And then I think this year we were all forced to pay more attention to it. So now I'm starting to be like, okay, I'm far less burnt out. I'm in a much better place in my life, both physically and mentally. I do want to start, getting back onto like the pulse of things and learning about like what is going on and what is the nitty gritty of things. And, what can I do to help? Like how can I help it in this kind of new phase in my life? I haven't quite figured that part out yet. But that's definitely something that I'm constantly thinking about is things are better. And I would like to share that with as many people as I can. So even if it's like taking care of my niece and helping her out and showing her like, yeah, there's a better way to do things. And there's an easier way to take care of your body. And like, there are, this might not be the most fun thing, but it will be the most beneficial. Or if it's supporting a local wrestling company that, is all about, showcasing queer wrestlers and like not making a big deal that one of their biggest world champions, because every wrestling company is a world champion, is a trans woman. And that was just like, hey, this trans woman won. Isn't that awesome? And everybody's like, hell yeah, that was awesome. I want to support that. I want to support artists that are, up and coming in Pittsburgh that I think are doing cool stuff, because that was another thing that I was like, I wish that there would have been more of that in the city, is more people supporting local artists is doing cool shit when I was coming up. So I'm kind of thinking about like that sort of stuff is how do I want to kind of contribute back in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not financially, if it's like, I don't know, like, even if it's not financially, I'm sure there's another way to help contribute and, you know, shine a light on folks and on things that need more light shined upon them.
Are you happy?
Yeah. I mean, the big thing that I think I had to kind of restore was my body, just driving and being in a car as much as I did, as I was over the course of a decade. Definitely had some negative impacts on my body. So like undoing that, I think was huge. And I'm still working on it, you know, and there, I still have ways to go, but that's okay. I'm fine with that. I'm excited to kind of see how, like, where this journey takes me with like figuring out how my body works and what to do, how to like make it work better. Because I've never really been connected with my body in that way. So it was just one of those things where I was like, it's different. I'm most definitely happy. And I was very happy performing. Overall, like, I was very happy performing. It was something I loved doing. And the only reason I stopped doing it is because, you know, like the pandemic happened and I was just redlining the whole time. Trying to survive, as many people did. And I think that's why I was like, I have to figure out how to have a different relationship with this if I'm going to like think back and look fondly on my time touring. Like, I don't want to look back on it and be like, oh, all it did was wreck my body. And I, you know, sacrificed all of these things and I missed all these birthdays. I did. And now I'm kind of like, I don't have to miss these birthdays. Now I can be here for anniversaries, birthdays, you know, New Year's Eve parties and all that sort of stuff. So I would say I am still pretty happy.
Well, thanks for doing this, man. Plug anything you want to plug.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to listen to any of my albums, they're available on Bandcamp at krishmohanhaha.bandcamp.com. They're all free. You like, please feel free to grab them for free if you want. I encouraged that even when I was touring. I was just like, here, take this shit for free. I just want people to enjoy it. Yeah, that's probably where most, if not all of my stand-up is. And then my YouTube channel is still active. I was told that I'm very Googleable.
Yeah, there aren't many Krish Mohans out there, so you got it.
True.
Well, thanks for doing this, buddy.
Thanks for having me, man. This is great. I really love this project, and I've enjoyed listening to many of the conversations on here. So yeah, looking forward to more.
That was Krish Mohan. Be sure to check out all of his stuff. Music for the 1000 Podcast is by Andrew Saxonov. Be sure to check out his podcast, the Baywatching Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review if you would. And if you want to support the show on the sustainability end, you can do so over patreon.com/RonPlacone. For a Give What You Can level, you get all kinds of cool perks, insights into new films and projects, full stand-up clips not available anywhere else, and Zoom Hangouts. Once a month, we do a Zoom Hangout where I run some jokes by you. We hang out. We have a chat. It's a really cool community, and that's for a Give What You Can level. And guys, I'm just so stoked. You could pre-order Left It Wall now on Apple TV. If you are able, please make that pre-order. Apple TV, Left It Wall, links in the show notes, and you can just kind of search it. You type in Left It Wall, it comes right up. If you're not an Apple TV user, don't worry. On January 24th, which is the official release of Left It Wall, it'll be on a bunch of different platforms. I'll be giving all the details, but there will be plenty of places to see it. It will not just be on Apple TV, but for now, the only place to pre-order it is Apple TV. Guys, I'm so stoked for that. Man. And also, last but not least, Happy New Year. This episode drops New Year's Eve, so it might already be 2025 by the time you're listening to this, but Happy New Year. Thank you so much for being part of this. It's a new year. It's a new beginning. We're continuing the 1000 journey. For those of you who have been there since the beginning, hope you're loving it as much as I am. For those of you who are newer, welcome. And we still got a long way to go. We still got a long way to go to 1000. I hope this is enriching for you the way it is for me. And I'll see you in 2025. Peace.
Hey guys, Ron Placone here. Take your own 1,000 challenge. No, you don't need to interview 1,000 people, although if you want to do that, go for it. Your 1,000 challenge can be whatever you want. Maybe you want to call a friend out of the blue once a week. Maybe you want to read a book every month. Maybe you want to start a different garden every season. I guess that might be dependent on where you live. Look, the point of the challenge is taking on an endeavor that enriches your life in some way, and it can be measured. And then, of course, you do it regularly. That's what 1,000 is doing for me, and hopefully for you too. The main reason for this podcast and every podcast I've ever done is to build community. So take your own challenge. Then join our Facebook group. It's called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? ? That's 1,000 What's Your Challenge ? And post about what your 1,000 challenge is and the progress you're making. All I ask is that people be encouraging of each other's challenges. This is personal and vulnerable, so be cool. There's enough negativity on social media. We don't need to add to it. For those of you who aren't on Facebook, hopefully in the future we'll be expanding to places like Discord, Reddit, but for now, we're starting on Facebook. And again, that Facebook group is called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? See you there.